Homeschool Hoopla. My name is Beth Arledge, and I'm coming to you today to address the question, should I homeschool? Several of you who are here wondering this have probably at least got a flicker of desire to look into the different educational options that there are for your children, and so you're willing to give serious consideration to the option of homeschooling. Well, let me tell you, I never thought that I would be a homeschool mom. I was a public school teacher for six or 7 years in the local high school where we live. And it was always my plan that my kids would go to school in the district where I taught, and I would just be involved in their education, and that way I would know their teachers and I would know their friends. And it was never the parents who came to conferences who were involved in their kids' education that I needed to see as a teacher. And so I just wholeheartedly believed then and still believe now that any parent who's going to invest in their child's education is going to see a more successful student. With that said, I never thought that. That wasn't my plan. But we know in the Bible it says the heart of man plans his way and the Lord guides his steps. And so through circumstances, my position in the public education arena was taken to a part-time position, and this was right after my second child was born. And so now I had 2 children in childcare on a part-time salary, and so my husband and I were kind of put into position to really think about whether or not that was going to work for our family, whether that would be a valuable use of my time. And ultimately we decided no, that I would just stay home. And so when it came time for my oldest to begin kindergarten, the sky was the limit. All the options were before us and up for consideration. And so we went to a homeschool conference that year as part of our pursuing these different options. We went to several open houses of different private schools, and we knew that our district was a good district for public school as well. But it was at the homeschool conference that we were both led to be confirmed in the idea of homeschooling. But there are many considerations to make for every family. I often hear moms say to me, I could never do that. I could never homeschool my children. And what's behind that statement could be a whole variety of ideas. It could just be like, I don't have the patience for my kids. It could be, we couldn't afford it. I need to work. I can't work and homeschool at the same time. But the reality is, I've met a lot of homeschool moms who are working part-time or full-time, who are leaning on the Lord daily for patience with their kids, who are just doing what they can to pull together the resources that they need in order to homeschool their children on a very modest single-family income. And so when you consider those things, you can start to see that it's not primarily an issue of those things, it's an issue of priority. So whether or not you are willing to do what it takes to homeschool your children, whether or not you have the deep desire to homeschool your children is really the question at hand. I totally believe that anyone can homeschool their children, but maybe not everyone should. And so that's the question that we're going to talk about. Should I homeschool? And I can't answer that question for you. Everybody's coming to this question with a different set of circumstances. And right now in our nation, there's a heightened sense of maybe fear, anxiety, or unwillingness at the very least to subject our children to whatever the public schools are going to be mandating for this upcoming school year with COVID-19 on the horizon. And for some people, maybe it's just the last straw. Maybe your children have been bullied. Maybe they haven't been bullied. Maybe they haven't been challenged. Maybe you're just a mom of a toddler and you're starting to think for the very first time about different schooling options, and so that's what brings you here today. So everybody comes to this question with a different set of circumstances and varying levels of desire or anxiety over these things. And so what I want to encourage you to do today is to use this decision-making tool. It's called an ANI chart, A-N-I, and it is something that we use My family does classical conversations. It's something that's used in the Challenge program. The Challenge program using a third-party tool from the Cersei Institute called Lost Tools of Writing. So we use this as a way to form our literary analysis, but we can also use this as a tool to just make decisions. In fact, my daughter and I used this as a tool when we were trying to decide whether she should take horseback riding lessons. And so we listed all of the reasons why in the A column, because A stands for affirmative. So all the positive reasons why she should take horseback riding lessons. And then we listed all the reasons why no, she shouldn't take horseback riding lessons in the N column, which stands for negative. And then we listed any other interesting points that we came up with in the I column. So A and I, Annie chart. And it's just real simple, 3 columns, and it's just a brainstorming tool. So you want everything you think of, put it in the positive, or in the affirmative, in the negative, or in the interesting column. Anything that you think of regarding homeschool as you consider this question whether or not you should. And so I have given you in the blog post kind of some starter points, but this is what the PDF download looks like. Should I homeschool? And some of the beginning points that you might consider in the affirmative, negative, or interesting column. Different books that you might want to look into could go here. Would your kids miss their friends? Would the things that you want to do with your homeschool cost more than what you can afford? What are some positive things? You have a tremendous amount of freedom in homeschool. You don't have to get up so early when you homeschool, if that's important to you. There's flexibility in your scheduling and in the curriculum that you choose. You have abundant opportunity to build relationships with your kids. So all of these things you're going to want to list: positive or affirmative, negative, interesting. And then what I want you to do is I want you to sit on it. I want you to walk away from that list for a couple days and come back to it. If anything kind of strikes you, I want you to go and add it to the list. I want you to read it over again, and I want you to read it with your husband. I want you to maybe even share it with your parents if they're really involved in your children's education. I want you to get their input and add it to the list. And then I want you to pray over it. And I want you to come at it on a fresh day and circle all of the most profound, all the most compelling things that you see on that list. And note which column are you circling those things from. Affirmative, that might be the way that you lean. Negative, maybe it's not for you. But this would help you really just lay out all of that mental activity surrounding this question. Consider all angles, pray it over, because anybody who asks for wisdom from the Lord will receive it. And then trust that the Lord will lead you where you need to go.